Chapter 3: The Phantom's Box.
That night, despite the tragedy that had been discovered earlier, a costume party was being held in the grand foyer to welcome the new managers of the opera, Monsieur Moncharmin and Monsieur Richard. All the guests were wearing elaborate costumes and masks for the occasion and enjoying the party, not concerning themselves with other matters. Suddenly, Meg Giry cried out,
"Look! The Phantom! That's him!"
All eyes in the room turned to a tall, thin shadow of a figure wearing a long red velvet cloak and a large feathered hat. As he turned and faced the other guests, everyone gasped in horror at his terrible face, more horrifying than any mask. It was such an awful sight that everyone present wondered the same thing. Was this a costumed guest, or did the so-called Phantom have the nerve to appear before them? Before anyone could speak, the cloaked figure slipped silently out of the room. The next day, Moncharmin and Richard were discussing their new responsibilities as outlined in a memorandum from the previous managers.
Our predecessors must be mad. Either they think we're stupid, or they've got a very strange sense of humour.
Richard was half smiling as Moncharmin responded.
I don't believe all this nonsense about a Phantom. Box 5 belongs to the Phantom and must remain vacant at all times, and we mustn't forget to pay him, or it, 20,000 francs a month, or we'll be sorry.
The managers quickly decided that their predecessors were indeed mad, and that they would not be threatened by some invisible creature. So they welcomed patrons into Box 5, and of course, left no money for the mysterious Phantom. Before long, however, they realized they should have paid closer attention to the memorandum of the former managers. One morning, soon after this conversation, Moncharmin arrived to find a strange-looking letter on his desk. It was in childish handwriting, in red ink.
Dear Monsieur Moncharmin and Monsieur Richard, this is to inform you that I have been very upset lately to find my box occupied by other people. You know very well my terms and conditions regarding Box 5. It belongs to me and no one else. So, if you wish to live in peace, kindly respect my wishes and do not give my private box to others in the future. The Phantom.
Look at this.
Moncharmin snorted at Richard.
It looks like our predecessors are trying to play a joke on us.
Do you think they're trying to keep a box for themselves?
Of course. What else could it be?
Well, let them have it then.
Fine. I'll send them some tickets for tonight's performance. Box 5, of course.
Moncharmin and Richard were so busy with their new responsibilities that they did not pay attention to Box 5 that night. The next morning, however, they had an unpleasant surprise. They found another note from the Phantom.
Dear Monsieur Moncharmin and Monsieur Richard, thank you for keeping my box vacant. Last night's performance was most enjoyable. I shall write soon about the money the opera still owes me for this year. The Phantom.
So the other managers had not attended last night's performance, but the Phantom had. Richard was furious.
That's it. I've had enough. I'm not giving in to this madness. Our patrons will sit in Box 5, Phantom or no Phantom.
However, some days later, Moncharmin and Richard received a report concerning the questionable activities in Box 5 that week. It was written by the opera inspector, Monsieur Bertillon, whose job it was to inform the management about complaints and matters of security at the opera. This was important to Moncharmin and Richard, as they were responsible for the comfort and enjoyment of their customers.
I demand an explanation for this report.
Richard snapped at the shy Monsieur Bertillon. The inspector responded nervously.
Well, sir, people are complaining about strange noises in Box 5, and they say they've been ordered by someone to leave.
And what does the box keeper have to say about all this?
Richard was losing more than his temper.
She says it's the Phantom.
Bring that woman to me at once!
Richard roared. When Madame Giry came into the office, Richard was blazing with anger.
Madame, what is your name?
Madame Giry.
What is all this nonsense about a phantom in Box 5?
He demanded irritably.
It isn't nonsense. The Phantom is angry because his box has been occupied. All you need to do is follow his instructions and no one will be harmed. He told me that himself.
Richard wiped his damp forehead and groaned with frustration. Moncharmin said simply,
Fine. You may go, madame.
When she had left, Richard looked at Moncharmin.
She's bad for business. Let's get rid of her and find someone who doesn't have such an active imagination. As for all this nonsense about Box 5, I suggest we look into the matter ourselves.
In the meantime, the opera performers were going about their usual rehearsals. Christine practiced endlessly, sometimes by herself, into the early morning hours. One morning, when only a few workers remained at the opera, Christine stood in front of her dressing room mirror. Suddenly, to her horror, the mirror seemed to move, to shimmer and turn as if by itself, and in a blinding flash of light, she felt herself swept into a damp, dark place. A cold, bony hand touched her face, and she fell faint from the fright of it. Coming to, she felt a tall, thin man pick her up and carry her off. She couldn't see his face as they hurried through the darkness, and she wondered how he moved so easily without light, stepping effortlessly over and around what must have been pieces of stage sets stored behind her dressing room. It seemed as if only skin and bones were holding her as they continued down, deep into the cellars. Christine was too frightened to speak, sure that her captor would do something awful to her if she made any noise. Suddenly, she was aware of the sound of water lapping gently against a boat. They had reached a lake beneath the opera house itself. There, the bony hands placed her in the boat, and they rowed off into the mist. A gas lamp on the front of the vessel gave off a soft glow as he rowed her towards a house on the other side of the lake. In the dim light, she could see that he was wearing a long black cloak and a high silk evening hat. A white mask covered most of his face. When they reached the opposite shore, he carried her from the boat and set her down onto the ground. He knelt before the frightened, trembling girl and said,
You are in no danger, Christine. I could never harm you. Do not let my mask frighten you. I only beg you not to touch it. If you see my face and learn my secret, I can never let you go. You have sung only for me, and your devotion has touched my heart.
Christine cut off his words with a desperate cry, and with a feeling of horror so deep she could hardly breathe, she now realized who he was. It was the one who had transformed her from a nameless voice in the chorus to the star she had become. It was the voice. She was weak with shock, but somehow gathered the strength not to faint. Now that she knew who he was, she could think only of what was hidden behind that mask.
I must see you.
With her last ounce of courage, she reached out and grabbed the mask, ripping it from his face. Her screams of horror echoed around the lake and through the cellars of the opera. Remembering her angel's words, she was shocked to find herself awakening alone in her dressing room. It seemed like an eternity since her last ghastly memory. Leaving Christine's dressing room, the saddened creature held a small piece of gold tightly in his hand. He returned to his home beneath the ground before his anger became stronger than his love.